Hey, Facebook family. It's Jerome Braggs. You are with me live here with my Soul Circle group. This is their fifth night in their last month. And we have been just finished meals and finished some talking, and we're going to get into the teaching segment. So I wanted to share a bit of you all with that. You all can't see them. They're behind the camera here, but you'll be able to hear them. They'll be asking some questions. But tonight we're going to be talking about life force energy and what charges it through you, into you, what drains it from you. How do you keep your vibration up? You hear a lot of people say keep your vibration high. Talk about why that's important a little bit and how to do that and how to sustain it. There's what most of us know about vibration and our experiences with it is very conditional. And not that as a soul you're not here to continue to have a consistent same vibration the whole time. That's that sameness, and you're not here in this world for that. You're here to have experience and difference and to have contrast. So it's going to dip and out. But the majority of your experience, you're supposed to have a chronically high one with dips, occasional dips. So we'll talk about the kind of key to that and some processes for that. And also I might throw in a little bit of manifestation tools and tips in here. Just kind of see how the time goes, but they're going to have they've been asking some really great questions, you all. So I'm sure they're going to have some more. So let's just dive right into what life force energy is. So really, life force energy is really your soul energy. It's source energy, right? So it's just almost like it says, it's the energy that gives life, that sustains life, right? The body, the physical body, the human physical body can only hold so much of it. And it does not have an unlimited source of it inside of it at any given moment. It has unlimited access to it, but it doesn't have an unlimited, what's the word I'm looking for here? Help me out. Reservoir, if you will. Like a storage area. Yeah, like a container. Your body is a container. It's not an unlimited container of life force energy. It's a finite thing. So it cannot hold infinity anyway. But it holds only a small a portion of it. And so you have to be super mindful of what you're doing with yours and how you're spending it. Because if the body gets fully drained of life force energy, that's where disease comes from. That's how you check out of this life. And when you're charged, that's when you're most of service. That's when you're the healthiest. That's when you're the happiest. So it really behooves us to learn about not just what it is, but how to charge it through us. Because really, it's almost like, like a battery. You're charging it or you're draining it. It's only two things are ever happening. You're either charging it through you or you're draining it from you. So we're going to talk a little bit about, for a second, kind of how to recognize some things what drains it from you, and then how to recognize what charges it through you, and why it's important that it's charged through you. Again, nothing can work well in your life if you have a constant drain of life force energy in you. And you can tell very simply about your relationship with life force energy by how you're feeling. You can tell it's very simple. It's how you're feeling. Do you feel good or not? Right? And not just in the body good. We're talking more life force energy, this is energy, so you're going to feel it more. You can feel it physically, but it's more of the emotional sense, right? So, when you're feeling the what we label as, positive emotions, right? So if you're feeling happy, you're feeling excited, you're feeling love, you're feeling appreciation, you're feeling giddy, you know, all of those, that's a signal that whatever's happening is charging it through you. When you're feeling stressed, you're feeling sad, not necessarily the sad that comes from like loss, like grief is different, but when you're feeling sad, right, when life is not, you're not enjoying your life, resentment, things like that, those things are a signal that it's being drained. And again, why this is really important, your life cannot work well when you are consistently being drained of life force energy, and your body cannot stay well when you are being drained. This literally, it's the perfect name for it, because this is literally what sustains and gives you life. And almost when I work with people who have illnesses, especially diseases or terminal diseases, I've never not seen it. It's always the case that when I work with them, they have a consistent drain on their life force energy somewhere, somehow, you know. And what's the key to their healing is charging that life force in, right? So we talk a lot in this group. One of the things that, you know, drains it the most is the trauma, the shame, and the fear. That drains it the most, but there are other things. So we won't talk a lot about the trauma and the fear because we've already talked a lot about that, but we'll talk about some of the other things. So So the first thing that kind of drains life force energy from you is any place you're making yourself wrong. Any place you're making yourself wrong. So let's say, for example, one of the prime places, and you've heard me probably talk about this a lot, is when I've said, when I've talked to, I say it's really not what you eat. You've heard me talk about eating, it's not what you eat, it's how you eat. Right? The energy you're eating with. So if you're eating something and you feel like I shouldn't be eating that, that's literally like poisoning yourself. Mm-hmm. It literally energetically is like poisoning yourself, because you're making yourself wrong, and it drains life force energy out of the body. And the body cannot make that particular thing that you're eating, it can't make it healthy. It could be a piece of broccoli. Mm-hmm. And if you feel like for some reason I shouldn't be eating this, the moment you should, I'm making myself wrong some type of way, it drains life force from the body. It drains it. So what's really important, this is kind of hand in hand here, is that you don't betray yourself. So if you feel like there's something that you shouldn't do, as long as you feel like you shouldn't do it, you don't need to do it. Because if you do it, there's the energy of betrayal, and it drains life force energy out. If you go somewhere and you feel like I love to in relationships, I see this a lot. You know, you're dating somebody, and you have this feeling like, I really shouldn't talk to this person, or I shouldn't get in this type of relationship, and you just go right on ahead and do it. And we've all been there some type of way, right? That's betrayal. And you are draining life force energy from yourself. And as long as you continue in that betrayal, you will continue to drain life force energy, right? So it's not necessarily that one piece of chocolate cake that you ate that sends the body out with the betrayal. It's like when you continue to betray, because every time it's coming down. Coming down, it's coming out, it's coming out. Remember, it's a little container, and so it can hold so much. You drain it out. If you don't put more in there, it's going down, and that's usually what happens with a lot of us. We're not taught how to charge ourselves back up, so we're consistently draining ourselves, And then we wonder why we hit brick walls and why diseases come up and why we just don't have any more energy anymore. And this is kind of what's going on. So that's one of the ways. That's when you make yourself wrong, you betray yourself. Didn't want to play all that. I knew y'all gonna laugh at my
Baby, this is right.
Well, this is ambidextrous.
I was just saying, man, you are ambidextrous. I can't even.
I'm actually impressed.
Yes,
Right.
I'm so impressed. I can't do it.
So,
Can we?
actually, that's a good exercise for you all to do. If you want to get in touch sometimes with if you haven't, this is all for you all at home as well. If you want to get in touch with the soul side of your guidance sometimes, if you can't get it, write a question with your dominant hand on a piece of paper and say, hey, I'd like to know this. Take a moment, close your eyes, take three deep breaths, and then with your other hand, just start writing and see what comes out. This is very powerful. You'll get a lot of guidance with that. This is just a simple exercise to do. With your dominant hand, write the question. What should we do about this? Or what is this? Or whatever question. It doesn't have to be, whatever question it is. With your dominant hand, write that. And then your non-dominant hand, you take a breath, take some, close your eyes, take in 3 deep breaths, and then with your non-dominant hand, write just whatever comes up. Just allow your hand to write. So the next thing that drains, actually let me up here just for people joining in where this is what drains you. So the next thing that drains your life force energy from you is when you do things you don't want to do. Now that will drain it more usually than anything. And usually, we'll get to 2 and 3 are kind of the same things, but usually this is what causes stress. That there's another aspect that causes what we term as stress. But usually what's actually at the cause of stress is you're doing something you don't want to do. It's either you're doing, the thing you're doing is not what you want to do, or how you're doing is not what you want to do. Right? And so why this drains. So, okay, again, going to number 1, why that drains life force energy from you is anything that's not in alignment with your truth is going to drain life force from you. So when you make yourself wrong, there's nothing wrong with you. So that's going to take it right on out, right? When you do stuff you don't want to do, your soul really is not here for that. This is one of those controversial kind of conversations, but your soul really is not here. Your soul came to get the juice and to squeeze all the juice out of life and to have a damn good time, right? And it did not come to have a saturated life with that. That's not why it's here. And so when you have this, and so why this drains is because this takes joy away from you. And joy is who you are, right? And it's why you're here. It's who you are and why you're here. So anytime you're doing things you don't want to do, you're draining life force energy from you, which is why you often, it's why when we do stuff like that, what do we often say? I feel drained. Mm-hmm. Afterwards, right? It's the very language we use. That's what's actually happening. Mm-hmm. Right? So, and if you could see, you really saw it, which was actually happening, is you're draining you out of you.
Wow.
Because this actually is you.
Mm-hmm.
So you're literally draining you out of you. So that's another aspect. Let's right after number 3, because it's on my head and I might forget it. So anytime you're not being yourself, and usually so this is why I said these kind of go hand in hand, because usually all of this stuff we're talking about usually comes right back in. This is kind of the umbrella thing here from all of these. But if you're suppressing yourself or you're hiding yourself, you're not living by your values or your belief systems, you're not saying what you want to say, stuff like that. Any type of suppression drains life force energy. Any type of suppression of your being, it drains life force energy from you. And again, for those who are, those of you in the room and any of those of you watching who may be experiencing some type of illness or disease, especially if it's chronic, it's almost guaranteed you've got a lot of this going on. Because these two things can heal you more than anything. When you switch them, they can heal you more than anything else. When you begin to be truly authentic. And let me stay on this for a minute, because what authenticity really is, why it's so important to be yourself, right? You hear that, it's kind of a cliche kind of term now, to be yourself. Not just because it's what charges life force energy through you and it's your reason for being here, but if you understand when you're being yourself, guess what you're actually being? You're being love. Because that's who you are. And we've been so socialized to think believe kind of what that is and what that looks like, right? We think love is this, but it's actually your real, unedited expression of your being is actually the expression of love on the planet. That's how you bring love on the planet. You are the incarnation of love. And when you do this, you keep yourself from yourself. You keep yourself from being love. You keep love from you. You keep yourself from the energy that you need. And you don't allow love to be on the planet. You literally deny the planet love. It is that profound. We don't usually hear it like that, but that's literally, when you understand, you are literal expressions of the unconditional love that is source, that is God, that is all that is. You are that. When you allow yourself to be all of that, your sexuality, your personality, your intellect, your weirdness, your quirkiness, your seriousness, whatever it is that is actually the most authentic expression of you, when you do that, you are literally being love in action. That's how you be love in action. It's not, like we talked about last time, being nice. Right? It's being you. That's how love comes onto the planet. So this is when you're not authentic, that drains. To ask your question now.
There are many things that we do in life that we don't want to, but it's like a necessity.
Mm-hmm.
So as we were kind of talking yesterday, if it doesn't bring you joy, then don't do it. There will be some. So that actually, the rule of thumb is to feel good. That's really every day. That's your intention. And if you just made that your one intention in the morning, how can I feel good today? And I'm not just talking physically good, right? Mm-hmm. I'm talking emotionally. Mm-hmm. How can I be more at peace today? How can I feel more worthy today? How can I feel more safe? Because those things really, the core of feeling good really is the more worthy you feel, the more enough and the more safe you feel, and the more joy you have. That's going to be, you're going to start feeling good. But how can I feel better today? How can I feel good today? Now, there are going to be things that sometimes that life will bring you that may drain your life force energy a bit. Like you may have to care for a sick loved one for a minute. You may have to, you just may have to care for a loved one from, and there may be something going on with the child or something like that. The important portion of that is, the rule of thumb is, if there is something draining your life force energy, you have to be that much more diligent about charging it up. So whatever is drained, whatever degree this is, you need at least like 10 times charging than that, so that it's not something that leaves you depleted. And we'll talk about kind of how to charge yourself up. But what ends up happening is, caregivers get into this a lot. Caregivers get into this a lot, of all types, whether it's caregivers of family, whether it's medical professionals. I mean, I grew up in the medical profession with my mom. I've seen this. I know this, right? So you can, you're always giving out, but nothing's coming in, right? And this is about kind of, actually, this is a great segue into number 4. Overgiving, non-receiving, right? So we talked a little bit about that in the last group, where you're always meeting other people's needs and not getting your needs met, right? Again, with caregivers, we see this, and this is not we're not talking judgment here. We're just talking about how energy works, right? So this is not a judgment, but this happens a lot with caregivers. Everything is about caring for the other person, and there's nothing coming back here. And if it is, it's like 85% of my energy's out here, and only 15% comes here. And caregivers usually have an issue with receiving. Right? So you're used to helping, and not used to asking for help, or receiving it when it's offered, or just getting that. And this is, we all kind of go through our own caregiving phases, but people who their primary, either their work is caregiving, or there's a period of their life where they're in the caregiving role for a moment. This is an issue, and most of us in the West actually have this issue. The West is very socialized into, but you can think about just the things we say all the time. It's better to give than to receive, right? Which I've always found so interesting, right? I've always found it so interesting that we say that, because one can't happen with the other, right? You can't have a receiving without a giving, and you can't give without somebody receiving. So they're the same thing. They're two sides of a coin. They're not two different things, so they're not better. And also, you're not better than that person that's receiving, right? You're not better than them. And it makes us, and that's subconsciously what we're saying. Right? And there's no place in this world where you're not receiving something. You're receiving air from the planet and light from the sun. The earth is giving you, this place. You're receiving all the time. So you don't get out of receiving, but we've shut our consciousness down to think that one thing is better, and it's the doing. Right? Doing. This is more of a being. And this also, if you open yourself up to receive, and we'll talk about how that charges life force energy into you in a second. This here is, it sets you into your worthiness. When we talked about all needs being met, and you're a wholly good thing, right? So wholly good thing means you're worthy. So you deserve to receive. And but when you're so focused in giving and you don't receive, you drain. Because now life can't give to you, right? Life can't. The universe loves you, and it wants to give. And so, it receives from you, and it gives to you. And we're trying to shut the channels off and just be about the giving, and that drains the hell out of you. You know, again, because you're pouring everything out, and nothing's coming here. So, you gotta, in order to charge your life force energy up, and especially people who are into these type of learning and spirituality, a lot of us that are attracted to this have a really big problem here. Most of us that come into this particular message have a really big problem. We give. We're out. We're here. And we are drained. And this also, we talked a little bit about this in the last time, but when you get here with like being nice, when you're over giving, it leads to resentment. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, because now you're wanting them to give you, you're giving because you want them to give back.
Yeah.
It's placing an expectation on the other individual, and then when they don't reciprocate, then you're disappointed, and then you have relationships that fall apart because it's an unmet need. And then the other side of that is you use them because you're always needing them to be low so you can feel better, so you keep giving to feel power.
Absolutely.
That's why you don't receive, because you feel disempowered when you receive. So you cut off that energy. So yeah, I figured that out like a couple months ago, and I had to open that channel.
Yeah.
Because it was really unbelievably imbalanced what was happening.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to hurt people by not letting them give to me.
Yeah. You know why why often when you're because you're giving while you're wanting them to give back, because you give them when you're over giving like that, and it's not that giving is wrong by any means. You just want to do it from a charged place. Because when you do it from a charged place, you're giving honestly. You're not expecting necessarily anything to come back. And the reason why you expect something to come back is you're actually giving the energy you need. You need that energy because it's, again, remember when I did the cup thing? So your cup isn't full. It's like down here. And you keep letting people put their straws in there like that, right? And they're supposed to drink from the overflow in the cup, the saucer underneath that, right? But if you keep giving it from the cup, then that's when you have the resentment, because you're giving what you actually need. And it may not be like I gave them. I'm not talking about you gave them $5. You don't need the $5. I'm talking about the energy of it. You need the energy.
But what I just realized when you said that is why most of my experiences, this is where I learned that imbalance from I don't want to say old people because that's not what I mean, but elders, 60, 70, 80 years old. And the more they give to you, like they shove it in your mouth, like they shove it in, like you take it. That's what they're doing. They're saying, this is what I need, so that's why I'm giving it to you. And then when you don't give back, they want to cut your throat. I don't mean literally, but that's the feeling, like you better give it back.
And you can feel that when you give, and we talked about this a little bit in the last, even the last video, but we talked about this a little bit about how when you give from this place, people can feel energetically. It sullies the interaction. Whether you can tell exactly what it is, but there's something here. You may start to feel obligated to that person, right? You may start to feel something, even if it's not said out loud. But we're energetic beings. So more than words, what you feel and how you communicate is what's in the energy. And how you show up, right? So what I'm sharing with each of you all, even right now, is what I'm holding energetically. If I'm not loving myself, if I'm feeling ashamed, if I'm in need of something, if I'm in need, I'm showing up pulling. If I'm not loving myself, I'm showing up pulling because I need you to love me. Right? This is how we energetically exchange. This is also why you can be with a person and not understand why you're drained.
So how do you fix it?
We're going to get to that. We'll get to that.
So my experience this morning when I woke up and there was this feeling of wrong, or not wrong, but there was this, I'll say misaligned. I mean, there was something odd. Is it could one of the possibilities be like an energy drain?
It could definitely be an energy drain. Also, when this is good to talk about with you all. When you go to bed at night, so you're always sending energy out, right? And energy's creating forward, right? When you go to sleep, you turn your consciousness so the soul is this is the body, and the soul kind of channels its energy through here and out, right? When you go to sleep, it kind of withdraws for a minute. So you're in this part, so there's no energy coming here to create. So you literally, I know it's kind of advanced, so I'm kind of putting a lot in there, but when you go to sleep, your creative energy kind of withdraws for a minute. It's almost like literally, it's almost like you go through the death process every night. Almost literally every night. You kind of withdraw your energy back into the spiritual, and then you come back in when you wake up. So why this is important? When you're sleeping, there's no momentum that you're putting forward. What's coming forward is the last thing that you did before you went to sleep. And then when you wake up, you kind of pick back into that energy.
That's why.
So what you want to do to shift, and this is something I'm going to recommend for all of you all to do. You can do this and you can see a shift in your life just from this simple thing. Before you go to bed every night, and if you have a partner, this is really great to do with them. Just like list out 10 really good things that are happening in your life. Or 5 things happening in your life, and then 5 things about your partner that you really like about them. And then have them do the same, right? And then do it like right before you're going to sleep. Don't talk about anything else after that. Like, don't get into do this right before you're ready to like really close your eyes and go to bed, right? Because what you're doing is you're shifting the energy. You're going into appreciation, and you're sending the energy out into an appreciation and into a higher vibe, right? And when you wake up, before you open your eyes, right? Because each of us has that moment, like right before you wake up, you have that moment. Okay, I'm awake and I'm about to open my. Before you open your eyes, just sit there, appreciate your bed. Like, what do you like about the bed for a second? What do you like about your sheets? When you open your eyes, you can look around the room for something, or you can just sit there and list out again 10 things. They don't have to be the same 10 things I really appreciate about my life, 10 things I'm looking forward to. And then, how would I really like to feel today? And you will have shifted, and you want to do this at least for a week consecutively, because you'll be able to see the shift. If you just do it one night and the next day, you may be able to see a little shift in the day, but what you're doing is you're changing the momentum of energy that's happening. Because it's like right before bed, I've shifted it a little bit, and then I'm shifting it again in the morning. And then right before bed, I'm shifting it. But what a lot of times we'll do is we'll have an issue, we'll go right to bed. And then you wake up and you pick right back up into that's what literally happens. You pick right back up into that energy again. Because you kind of pick it. It's like you kind of lobbed it, and then you ran over there and you picked it up. So you want to shift it, and this is even if there's like nothing that happened the last day. If you just do that in the morning, you can shift it. Before you get out of bed, appreciation. How do I want to feel? You can do more than 10 things, but I really like to do it until I can literally feel emotionally, me getting excited or me getting appreciative or me feeling a sense of just like relief or something in my body, and then I'll get up. And you do that consecutively. Really, if you do it for a month, you'll see some miracles happening in your life, I promise you. Just that alone. But you can see something shift in your life if you just do it for a week. And that's something to do anyway, because what you're doing when you get up in the morning is you're putting energy in motion for the day. So before you get out of bed, if you start the energy of appreciation, and that's appreciation and joy, it's like the closest emotional energy to how the soul feels. So if you can get into that, then that's sending out energy for your day. But that's really something we don't talk a lot about, but that's really when you go to bed, you are going to sending out, momentum, and then when you go to sleep, the consciousness is what sends the momentum out for the energy in this physical world. And you put your consciousness to sleep. So it's not sending anything out, and then you wake up and it just kind of catches right back into where you left it. So you want to shift that a little bit. Now there are all types of things that can happen. Let's say you travel somewhere and you went to sleep in a hotel. There may be an energy signature in there that you can pick up on, like what somebody else left, especially if they have some type of trauma in there. There's kind of energy signatures we leave in rooms. You can pick up on stuff like that. Whether it's yours or not yours, it's really not the issue. The issue is shifting it. Just shift it. And if I don't feel good, that's all you need to know. Something doesn't feel right. Great. I don't want to feel like this. I want to shift it. So, because a lot of times we can spend on, and the soul is this universe loves you. So whatever you ask, you have to get an answer for, right? And so we can spend a lot of time in, this is not a judgment or anything, I'm just talking about this perspective, because this is for you all's life, because this happens a lot, around a lot of different things. We spend a lot of time on wanting to know why, when what you really wanted to know was, I don't want this, I want this instead, and I want to get over here. And when we get into why, you get the answer to the why, but it still keeps you over here, right? So to shift it. So if I don't feel good, or if I'm in some type of energy, whether it's mine or not, right? My thing is, I want to shift out of it. So what do I do to shift out of this? How do I feel better? So I can take a shower and imagine, this is one of my things too, I like to do, when I'm in a funk and I don't know where it's coming from, energetic, I don't know what. I'll take a shower and I'll imagine it, the water going through all of my chakras and down through the drain and cleaning out whatever energy is in now. And I'm not trying to force it. It's just coming all the way down. As the water's running down my body, I'm imagining it going through all of my, even if you don't know what a chakra is, just it's coming through my body all the way down and out, right? And it's going out down the drain. And I'm good. You can try that. That actually is a very good thing to do when you've had a very stressful day at work. Get in the shower and imagine the water flowing. It started at the top chakra. So you want to, which is the seventh one, the crown chakra. You want to imagine the water coming through here, going all the way down. And as the water's hitting your body, it's cleaning out all of the stress and going down the drain and out. And for those of you all who will start to, who may teach or speak or something like that, this is a very powerful exercise for you all to do at home too. This is a very powerful exercise for you all to do after you do certain things, because there are, I used to do, when I used to coach speakers, something that happens with people who speak for large crowds. So this is something we don't talk about, right? But you're speaking and they're receiving, so they're pulling. So they're pulling energy, and that's fine. That's the energy exchange. Like, there's a pulling here happening, right? I'm here for it, right? That's fine. There's times where I'm pulling, right? But they're really wanting the information that you have, right? And they're really wanting, so there's an energy pool there, right? And so what you'll find with a lot of speakers, they're like, all I did was speak for 30 minutes or 40 minutes. All I didn't do, I just was speaking, and I feel so tired. Why am I so tired? So that's another, actually, let me put this up here. So environments can drain your life force energy. depending on what's going on. So that's the drain, that's a pull, right? It charges and it pulls. So, when I speak for very large crowds, it could be a little bit of especially because I'm an introvert, right? So being in public and doing all of that can be a little bit of a drain. And just energy exchange, you have energy exchanges with people, right? And so for some extroverts, being around a lot of people is what charges. It brings energy in them. For introverts, that process drains, right? So you have to kind of know that, but also certain environments you're in, right, can drain your life force energy. If it's a very chaotic environment, if it has a lot of pain and anguish in it, sometimes it could drain. If it's a high stress, it could drain. Certain of our families can drain. Your environment and social situations. And you want to be very kind of cognizant about, pay more attention to how you feel, how the body's feeling, right? You can feel if this is charging me up or if this is kind of... So you want to be kind of very cognizant of these things, right? So there are other things that drain life force energy, but these are kind of the main things. When you're doing something you don't want to do, you're making yourself wrong, you're being non-authentic, you're over-giving, right, and not receiving, and the environment you move in. They could call it toxic environments, and there are toxic environments to the system that are kind of poisonous. But just sometimes it's not that it's just like a poisonous thing, but like, again, person wants to speak. This is his tribe. He loves the people that he's speaking to, but the energy exchange, right? It's just the balance of the energy is just out of balance for a minute. So you have to be cognizant of that, right? So I used to see this when I used to do psychic fairs. When I first started doing... when I start my psychic and intuitive gifts open, I would do psychic fairs. And I didn't just start doing kind of one-on-one clients. I started at just putting myself right out at psychic fairs, which I learned this big time because I was doing, working psychic fairs. I was there from like 10 to 5, 10 to 6, 2 days in a row. And sometimes I do like 30 readings in a day. And at the end of the day, I was like, yeah. Like, I was just like, and I didn't understand at first. And there are different tools you can do to protect your energy. But there's a lot of that, And it doesn't mean that there was things I had to learn about, okay, I can do this many readings for a minute, and then I need to step back, and I need to do something to charge myself. I need to come back. Parents. With kids. If you're around your kids 24/7 and you don't have a period where you charge, your kids require certain energy from you, right? And they can charge, at times they charge it into you, right? But if you're constantly around, you'll see, and we've all seen parents who look like the life has been drained out of them. You can see it in the face. So, these are the 5 basic things that drain the life force energy out of you, and you have to be. And again, sometimes you have to. It's not that you don't ever be a parent, right? And you don't ever interact with your kids, but you got to know. You got to really pay attention to your body, and then you have to know how much is. One thing I find too is it may drain, but it didn't have to drain that long. And that usually is some story we're telling ourselves, right? Where I shouldn't do this, or it is my mother, or this or that. And it's, you may not be able to disconnect the interaction, but you didn't have to spend 6 hours. You could have spent 30 minutes, right? And that's the difference kind of thing. So instead of the drain being a complete drain where you are absolutely depleted, this is where, one more thing about this is where self-care, right? We are practicing self-care and promoting self-care right now from the space of trying to depleting the hell out of ourselves and trying to get back to zero. And that's not what it's for. That's not what it's teaching. It's to continue to have you charged up, not because you drained the shit out of yourself and now you're like limping to the barn and you need somebody to sew you up back up again. That's how we use self-care, like sew us back up again, right? It's not to sew you back up again. And that's the sign. If you need self-care to try to sew your life, your being back up again, you are too drained. You have too much, and you need to have a life that charges you instead, right? So self-care is an extension of your nourishment. And it could be something that helps charge, but not because you're so drained that you just need some self-care to just even function, right?
Remedy.
Yeah, it's not a remedy. So, yeah. Any more questions on the draining portion before we go into the charge?
It's a charge.
All right.
I love it.
Charge. It's charge.
Oh, I forgot to ask if y'all got a picture of that.
Oh, I did.
I got one. He got you. Fernando's. He covered it.
Okay. So, let's do an exercise for this. I want you all to do this at home for the draining. So we're going to stay on draining. Once you get out, I want you to take some pieces of paper, some lined pieces of paper, if you have them. They don't have to be. But I want you to go through that list. So what am I doing that I really don't want to do? What am I doing that makes me feel stressful? That makes me feel drained? What am I doing? Who am I hanging with? Where am I overgiving? Go through that list and write and make a list of everything that's in your life that's on that list. And then I want you to make a commitment to yourself that you're going to stop that. Now, you don't have to stop it cold turkey. You could be, I want to stop one thing on each of these things this week. And I just want you to watch. Remember before we started this, I said the expression of the soul is more about, it's not about addition, it's about subtraction. Watch what happens just by you stopping some of those things in your life. You'll experience joy and more energy in your body, whether you charge it up or not, just by stopping draining it. And hey everybody, so if you're just joining, we're talking about life force energy, what charges it and what drains it. We just got through with what drains it from you, and I'm about to go into what charges it into you. I know if you all have any questions, I may be able to take some questions from here, maybe one or two, but if you have any questions about what we're talking about, please put it in there. And I see some of you all commenting already. So, yeah, try that. So that's not try it. I actually want that as an assignment for you all. I want you to do that. I want you to write a list of what drains me. And be very honest. This is a brutal, honest time, right?
Yes.
What drains me? It could be work. It could be a relationship. It could be an environment you're in. It could be something you're doing, something you don't want to do. Whatever it is, be honest about it and write it down. Because a lot of times you can't make the adjustments until you're really clear about what it is. And it's a powerful thing just alone to write it down and you see it written down and you're like, oh my God, I never thought about it. It's like when you write it down, you see it, you're like, I never thought about it until I just put it on this paper, how much that actually drains me for real and what I actually feel like. And then the feelings will come up and you say, this is actually what this feels like. And I hadn't really taken time out for myself to really be honest about that. So that's part one of the exercise. There's a part two. There's part one. We'll get to part two after we do what charges you. So, again, you have a pull on your life force energy that pulls it down, and then you have things that pour it in, right? So it's filling the container up instead of taking from it, right? And so, still not a color. Your passions, things you're passionate about, right? So these are things that you enjoy doing, things that you get excited about doing. It could be from, maybe it's spending time with kids, maybe it's amusement parks, maybe it's, spending time with animals, maybe it's swimming, maybe it's teaching. Right. So for me, teaching is a passion for me. When I am teaching, I am charged. I get charged. I love it. I can do it, a long time before it starts to pull on my energy. So, but it doesn't necessarily have to be work related. I made my life around my work, just teaching spirituality. That's what my passion is. But whatever, there are other passions we have, right? I like to travel. Travel charges me. I like to swim. I like being by the ocean. I like soulful conversations. So if you're, I don't really do what I realized would drain me. So me doing my own work, this is stuff I've done myself. So me doing, when I got my list out, what drained me, this shifted my life actually a few years ago, when I realized that I do not, what drains me is surface conversations. So not everybody, but me, it did. I have a very short shelf life for surface conversations. I can talk about sports, even though I was an athlete and all that, but I have a very short time to talk about all of that before I start to get drained. So I want to talk about what's going on in your life, what's going on with your soul, what are you healing, talk to me about aliens and, the other side, that's my stuff, right? And people that are close to me know we're going to laugh, we're going to joke, but we're going to go deep too in the same process, because that's what charges me. Being silly charges me. My close friends are also very silly. Right, we laugh a lot, and we're really silly laugh. So, so I have all of this, but I'm really silly. So, and he's seen some of it. So, yeah, if when you meet my really close friends, and you see us in our real element, we are silly, right? And I actually have a rule: if they're not silly, they're not for me. So. That that kind of silliness and laughter and all that charges me. So, but that's what are your passions? Your passions, and this is why it's so important to build your work on your passions. I can't say that enough. I mean, this literally could be a whole class by itself. The importance of your work being passion-based. Because you spend so much of your time in it. And if it's not passion-based, so if it's not charging you, what is it doing?
Draining.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so, and it's another reason too why a lot of illnesses that come, you'd be very surprised, the people I work with that come to me for healing for illnesses and disease, a lot of times that illness heals right up when you leave your job. But it was a drain. It pulls and drains. So it's, you got to make sure, and this is again, it's a lot to talk about around this, because you got to trust the universe, that the universe loves you enough that you can build something based upon what you love, and you can make a living doing it, and you can do a living well. There's all these different aspects that go to it than just, I'm just going to quit everything today and I'm going to go out. If you don't believe that you're held, you don't believe that all your needs are going to be met, you got to look at your socialization around whether or not you believe you're worthy enough to make money doing that. All of that kind of comes in. But I cannot passion, do what you love and what charges you. It will keep you healthy, and also the more life force energy that's charged into you, the better you manifest. You can't manifest success and abundance and prosperity when you're drained, because you don't even have the energy to do it. That energy is not even going forth to do so. So, but when you're very passionate and you love what you're doing, if you don't also have a belief system in there that says you can't make money doing this, right? If you don't also have something that's negating that, money will flow through very fast. So that's one. Passions. Saying no. So we've talked a lot about, if it's not a hell yes, what that means, right? If you've ever, I tell people all the time, don't just take my word for it, prove it to yourself, right? This is something you can prove, especially if you've had a history of not doing it, of not saying no to what if you said yes to things you really want to say no to. When you start doing this, pay attention to how you feel in your body. Pay attention immediately when you do it too. I'm not talking about like days later. The moment you say a no, and it's a no, pay attention to how you feel. It is very palpable. If you pay attention, it's a very palpable, and you will this energy stuff is not just up here. This is stuff you can feel if you really tune into it. If you start saying no, the real no's, and you start honoring your boundaries, you will feel the surge of energy go through your body, and you will feel more empowered and more energized all of a sudden. And you didn't even do anything but say no. But you can notice that a real no, where you honored your boundaries and you really honored your being. So that's another aspect, because it kind of goes hand in hand. Honoring yourself, right? And this is a part of it. But when you really honor yourself, you are, and I see a lot of you all are chiming in and saying, yeah, when they say no, they can feel it. It's an honor. It's almost like you're protecting yourself and honoring yourself and giving yourself what you need. And it's a surge of energy that will go through the body. And you'll end up feeling like, you'll find your chest is sticking out a little more and your shoulders are a little back. You literally can see, like, again, this is not just, I don't just theorize on stuff. Like, I want you to prove this stuff to yourself. But when you do that, especially if it's something that you're feeling is not safe to say, like the old trauma stuff coming up, that says it may not be, I need to please them, right? Or but if you stand in and you honor what you feel, you say that no, you will feel a charge of energy go through your being. You'll feel it. And the more you honor this is why it's the immune system of the spirit, right? Because it keeps the life force energy in the body. It keeps it strong. We can also say honor/love yourself. Actually, no, let me do that differently. I'm gonna make that number 4. So there's 2 aspects here: self, and then external. So when you love yourself, you are highly charging. Now there's different aspects of love. There's what I mean specifically by this, honoring yourself is part of loving yourself, but I'm also talking about appreciating yourself. Like when you talk to yourself about what value you have, and what's working well about you and what you appreciate about yourself and what you celebrate yourself, you can feel it. You'll feel energy surges go through you when you do that. That's charging it. And I have a story, it may be a little, I don't want to take a lot of time because I just did a video on it. I may tell you after we stop this video around this, and how I literally saved my life through that one day. And so self, when you appreciate and all that, but also, let me actually, I want to take the whole thing and talk about that. So self-love, and then love in the form of community. Your tribe, right? Having people where you feel loved, where you feel like a sense of belonging, where you can show up as your full self, that charges you fully. That's a huge charge of your energy. Remember we talked about environment as a drain? A lot of times when you don't and you feel alone, I meant to say alone in the environment, with the drain, feeling of aloneness drains your life force energy big too. It's a huge drain, feeling alone. Yeah. So, sense of community and belonging. I want to say belonging. That's really important. So these aspects will, and I don't even know if you all can even see, I'm just seeing this now, I got this light here. You might not even be able to see what was on the board this whole time. So they couldn't see what was on the board this whole time. Sorry, y'all, I hope you heard it. So that is, these aspects will, when you're doing your passions, let me come back up here, because this is another element, and it's just as important. It could be a separate thing. I could actually say this is number 6, but I'm going to keep it as number 1. Follow your joy. I cannot tell you how important this is. This actually could be a whole class by itself. Seriously. Because joy is literally your biggest spiritual guide. It's your biggest GPS here. It's going to lead you to your purpose. It's the path of healing your body. It's going to lead you to success. It's going to guide you to the unfoldment of your being, like the expression of your whole being here. Literally, like your biggest friend and guide, your soul Sherpa is joy. So do what makes you happy. So this is where, like, so let's come back to the assignment I gave you. It's the first one to look at what drains you. What are you passionate about? What charges you? Right? And so, for instance, some of the things that were on my list are swimming, walking by large bodies of water. So for me here, it's lakes, but oceans, the beach is like the best for me, but I have to go by the lake often. Being in nature, soulful conversations, travel, exercise for me. I like to cook, things like that. You know, these are things that like charge me, right? I get excited about them. I have like, I'm in that kitchen and it's just, I'm excited. And I might be doing 1,000 things, but it's charging me up instead of making me drained. For some people, they don't like to cook. For some people, cooking's a chore. It's not a chore for me, right? So I want you to get a list out, and you may not have, remember I talked about in the beginning, it may be hard to see what all this is. right? What these are in the beginning. But as you begin to make that drain list and you start to cross some things off of that in your life, this will come really, it'll start getting clearer. It will emerge. But you will know some of this already, some of this, and you need to look at, I want you to write it down, and I need you to look at where can you begin to saturate more of your life with that. Because what you'll find is a lot of the times when you first do this list, you have forgotten some of those things. It might have been months, even maybe years. You know, some people, writing is another one of my passions, and doing videos and teaching, right? And when I did my list, I realized, whoa, I hadn't been teaching in a while. So I started to do live videos, right, where I connect. And if I go too long without doing a video or doing something like this, I can feel my energy drained, right? So that's why it's not just about marketing my business. This is what I love. It charges me, so I got to do it. And that's kind of what we talked about Tuesday, is about building your business around stuff that you love, right? And how do you shape it? This is an example of that, right? So when I wrote down my stuff, teaching, talking about spirituality, cooking, so that's another question for any of you all who are talking about, or any of you all out there wanting to do business, right? How do I shape a business around what I love? Well, guess what? You all right here are literally in an experience of that. I thought, how can I put together? Oh, let me do a group where I teach them about the soul. I cook for them. I have them in my house. We have soulful conversations. It doesn't have to be this hard process. It can be very simple. But you got to do this work first. You got to get honest about what it is that really charges you. For some people, it's serving people. It's helping people. For some people, what brings them joy. You know, I had a client, let's tell this story. I had a client, this is years ago. And I was working with him, and he wanted to, it was around business, since we brought this up. He wanted to, he was like, I really just want to do, I keep hearing people talk about purpose and doing something, that they love. So it's okay, let's do it. That's what you want to do, so let's work on it. So I was asking, what do you want to do? What do you really like to do? He kind of scoffed it off. I was laughing. It's like, oh, it can't be serious. I was like, yeah, what do you seriously really love? Well, I just like to, what I really want to do, right? I was like, what if you could do anything that would bring you joy for the rest of your life, what would you think you do? Well, and he was very skeptical about this. Hugely. I just want to make this very clear. He's hugely skeptical about this. He was like, I just want to travel the world and eat. I just love to eat. And that's another thing, by the way. I don't just like to cook. I like to eat. Personally. So, for real. So that was I'm going out to eat. I like to go out to eat and all that. So, and I say that because if you know me, that's a huge part of my life. But that was a very mindful decision. I knew that I don't just like to cook all the time. I also like to go out to really nice places and eat. So I need to have that as part of my being. That needs to happen at least once or twice a week. So back to this client. So he was saying, I just want to eat, right, and travel the world. So I said, fine, you could do it. It's like, oh no, I said, yes, the universe loves you, and the universe wants you to have what you want, especially if it's who you are. So I gave him the assignment to go back. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up. Let me go back up because I'm confusing this with another client. This is not my client. This is a friend of mine's client. This is years ago, so I just confused him with another client. Same story though. This is not my client. So a friend's client, because I met the client. So a friend was telling him, I had a client that was very similar, but this is the difference. So my friend was telling the client, okay, go home. You're going to say a prayer every night that I'm willing to believe that this can be created for me. I don't know how, but I'm willing to believe that you can create something for me where I can get paid well to travel and eat. And they did some work, and I think their sessions had ended. Their coaching sessions had ended. And I think it was like between 6 weeks, maybe 4 months later, my friend got a call from the client. It was like, hey, I just want to check in with you. It's like, okay. It's like, so my friend was like, okay, what's going on? He's like, well, you're never going to believe what I'm doing. And that client had literally gotten a job traveling across Europe, which was his favorite destination, by the way. Traveling across Europe, going to different French restaurants, which was his favorite food.
Wow.
And tasting their menus and giving them advice on things they could add in or take away from the menu. That was his whole job. And he was getting paid well. He got paid to travel through different cities throughout Europe to go to different French restaurants, taste their menus, give them, and he was paid very well. And so this is the thing, and I've seen this time and time again, because I'm a testimony of this as well. Like, I literally get paid to be myself. I love talking about spirituality. I love helping people heal. I love people to live well. I love helping people wake up into who they are. This is not something that, this is stuff I was doing without money involved before. I loved this. This is like juice to me. I love it. So you literally, the universe loves you, and it knows you better than you know yourself. But a lot of times we don't trust. But if you will literally start to dance with it and say, get clear about some of the things. What do I really love? What do I really love? Just do these processes, and then also make room. Like, if you have a life that you don't love, it can't put a life that you love on top of that.
Absolutely.
You have to take that out. You have to take some of that out. But yeah, do this, do that. What things charge you? When I ride horses, I'm charged. Or when I talk to a certain friend of mine, I'm really charged. Whatever that is, write it down. And it's not all going to come to you in one sitting. Neither one of the exercises. You're going to have to kind of spend some time on them. So you may do it, you may sit down for 15 minutes one time, and then 2 days later, something else will come to you, and then you go back to it and sit down. But take some time. You want this list. This list is going to be very important to you, because it'll change your life. When I did that, when I understood that I didn't like surface conversations, what came clear to me is I do like soulful conversations. So I began to look at how can I saturate my time with more soulful conversations. So I spend more time with friends where I can go deep. I do stuff like this, right? Have people in my home where we can talk deep, right? And so it doesn't have to be soulful conversations for you. It's whatever. It could be I don't care what it is. It could be shooting a gun at the gun range. Whatever that is for you. What is that thing that just sets you on fire? How can you saturate yourself more with that? How can you saturate your life more with that? That's what's going to bring life force energy into you. That's what's going to heal you and keep you well. The people that are the healthiest have some type of, they're charged more. It's not that they're nicer and that they're more spiritual, which is, we have this, a lot of people come and ask me, why is this person so sick? They're such a kind and nice person, and this person is an asshole, right? And they don't have any sickness. Well, let's look at what's going on trauma-wise internally, right? And let's also look at I can promise you that person that's sick is saying they're overgiving, right? Especially if they're super sweet. I can guarantee you that. They're overgiving, they're not saying no, right? And the person that's the asshole is probably saying no, which is why we think they're an asshole a lot of times, right? They're doing what they're following. They're following what they want to do and not giving a care about what you're asking for, right? They may not be doing the love and all of that, but they're not draining themselves, right? So these things will keep your life force energy in. If you just do this alone, these two alone, you'll have a huge difference. Huge difference. Okay. Any questions on?
So
On
just
that.
a clarifying, so like with
Yeah.
following your joy,
Yes.
is that following your heart, following your intuition?
So following your joy is, I'm so glad you asked that, because there's slight differences, and this is important. Following your joy is really following what feels good. And again, not necessarily what feels good in the body, but what feels good emotionally, what gives you a sense of happiness and excitement, what gives you a sense of ease sometimes. But what you know, and in order to do that, you are going to have to listen to your heart, because it's going to be your heart. Your heart's going to say sometimes. There was a woman that wrote a book that was, she was talking about how she's very successful. I think it was Shonda Rhimes, who had all these, she's a successful television writer. She has all these great TV shows, like Scandal and all of that, I think. And she wrote a book, I think it was The Year of Yes or something like that. And she was talking about all the times that her children would want to play with her. And they want to play, and she was like, no, she needs to work. And she decided, what if I played when play presented itself? Mm-hmm. And she went and did it. And she said it changed her whole life. Mm-hmm. And she became this happier thing, and she made joy. And that's kind of the thing. Sometimes your heart, if you follow your joy, it's not going to be rational. I need to make this very clear, because it's the path of the soul. It's not going to be rational. And it's going to be from the outside, people are not going to understand. And you're going to have to be willing. Because this is where you want the miraculous life and you want the delicious life. This is it. So I did in 2012, it was inspired by heartbreak, but I was had just a ridiculous heartbreak, and I could not get myself together. And I was like, I just put it out there. I was like, universe, you got to help me, because I'm just like, it was just deep dive hurt. And I came across this video by Abraham Hicks, and for all of y'all who know, I've been following Abraham almost 20 years now. And when they were on cassette tape, by the way, you all, that's when I knew Abraham. They had this thing that said you could transform your whole life in 30 days. And the biggest aspect of it was you had to do a kind of a digital detox, right? So I didn't really use the phone. I didn't use the computer, all of that. I checked my phone maybe every other day, and I would check it once, and only if it was an emergency, and then I didn't use it or call. But the one big caveat was you had to do only what you really wanted to do for 30 days. You had to basically follow your joy for 30 days straight. Just do it for 30 days. And one thing about me is I am a person who will... If you say something's going to work for me, I'm going to dive all the way in it, and I'm going to give it a chance. And I'm going to give it a chance saying, I dived all the way in. If this doesn't work, F you, I'm never going to do this again. Right? But at least I know that this didn't work. But I'm going to go all the way. So I did it. I did the whole thing. And the main thing every day was I woke up, what would I really enjoy doing today? And then anything that I didn't feel good about doing, I said no to. I canceled any meetings. I canceled whatever it was. That was the most, I didn't do it for 30 days. I did it for 45 days. And it was the most miraculous period of time in my life. I mean, I'm no kidding. It was the most, and I've had some sheer, like, stunning, movie-worthy miracles happen in my life, but this was the most miraculous time of my life. I had things that I had been working hard for years that weren't manifesting just come to me during that time. I made more money in that in those 45 days, and I made the entire year before that. And with hardly any work. My health was ridiculous. There were people, I didn't interact a lot with people during that time, but I remember when I came out of that, when I first went to eat with a friend of mine, it was a couple, and a friend and his wife, and they were just like, when I walked in the restaurant, I'll never forget, they were just like, what? You were literally like floating. You're like glowing and floating. We don't know what this is. Like, what is this? They were just like for real. They were like, what? Like, we literally think, we keep looking around because we think like the feds or somebody's going to come get you and study. Like, you are like floating and glowing. My energy was like, because when you flood your being with joy, your life force is like out of this world. And I learned something very big through that process. I learned that action is very overrated. It's really overrated. Alignment is everything.
That is amazing.
And this is what kind of the process of alignment is. One of the processes of alignment. We can talk about the other process of it later. But this is one of the processes. But action is very overrated because there were things I was trying so hard to do and to happen for me before. When I just stepped back and I made my focus joy, they all just started just showing up left and right, without me doing anything, without me calling. I remember there was at that time I was speaking a lot to businesses, and there was this business that I had been trying to connect with, and it was just, and I had just muddied up that whole relationship. It was just not working, and they basically came to me with this whole package. It was like more money I had ever seen to do this whole, and it was so easy. And I didn't call them. I don't want to take a lot of time, but this was the most miraculous period of my life I can remember today. And I learned a lot about if you would just do this. And we are so socialized outside. There's so much chatter that says don't do this. You should be doing something else. You should be working harder. If you would just do this, if you would make your day about joy and following it, what would I enjoy next? What would I really want to do now? And sometimes it is, well, I really do want to finish these bills here. Sometimes it is, I do want to do this call, or I really want to sit down and write this thing. Sometimes it is that, but if you will follow what's in your heart, will say it. This is where your heart comes in. Your heart, and then your gut guidance. If you listen and be like, I feel like calling, because that was something that would happen during this time, was when I started to follow the joy and I said no to everything else, right? My guidance heightened. And so I would start to feel like, I feel like I should call this person. For some reason, I feel like I should call them. And that was another caveat of that. When you got guidance, you were supposed to follow it immediately, right? So, and when you start to do this, your guidance starts to kind of rev up. So I would call the people, and I'd be like, I just had a feeling to call you. And all of a sudden, it'd be some deal or some miracle for me. Or they'd be like, you never guess. I just got this thing and I just thought about you and it was something I wanted, had been wanting forever. And they were like, I just came through my office and I thought you may want it. You want it? Like, yes. So, I mean, all of this stuff, it was just like literally you're following your guidance and your joy. So, but we are, again, I've talked to you all in this group a lot about how you come in as children is how you're supposed to be. This is what kids do. This is what babies do.
And when they don't want to do it, they holler at you like, no.
Yes.
I don't want to
The whole thing is about joy. Their whole being is about, can I taste something of joy? Can I touch that? Ooh, what is that over there? Ooh, that's exciting to look at over there. It's the excitement and the joy of being and what they want to do. And then we get into caregiving systems that say, no, you have, and this is just part of life, right? So it's not blaming your caregiving system, but we get into caregiving system, no, You got to do this instead. You can't do this. You need to do what I need to do. So you get socialized to think my needs and my desires are not okay, and I can't do this. And this is what we're connecting back to. This is how you be a soul on the planet. This is it. You do this. This is what it's all about to the end of time.
Coming through. I like that. This is amazing. That's amazing.
So, and your heart is going to lead you more than anything, than the mind. The mind is usually going to be socialization and traumatization more than anything. It's going to be that. But your heart is going to, and literally every morning, get out a piece of paper, get you a journal. In the journal, what would I enjoy doing today? Dear universe, I'm going to surrender my day to you, and I'm just going to follow what I'm feeling called and most enjoy to do. I'm going to listen for my guidance, but I'm going to follow my joy first. Joy first, everything else after that. This is even talking about meditation. If you get up in the morning and you do not want to meditate, don't do it. I said it. I'm gonna say it in the camera. I'm a spiritual teacher that will say it. Actually, I'm more of a metaphysical teacher, but there's a lot of, because if it starts to feel like a chore and an obligation, guess what that's doing?
Sucking your energy.
It's draining your life force energy out of you.
Yeah.
Right? So you're not supposed to do anything that drains the life force, really, energy out of you. So if you don't want to meditate right then, what do you want to do instead? Maybe you can go for a walk. Maybe you want to talk with your friends. Maybe you just want to chill out and be in the bed. You can meditate later in the day. Do it when you're inspired to do it, or when you have when it doesn't feel like a obligation or a push or a force. Right? So that's, this is the play and the dance of life. Draining, charging of the life force energy, right? You're never going to be always 24/7 charged, right? But you want to be the majority of your, if this is you, and what's in the cup represents, you don't want to be living down here, or even right here. You want your stuff to kind of move in between up here, right? So if you just coming down a little bit, it's not going to be that much of a thing. But the thing that happens too is we allow a little bit to happen today, a little bit to happen tomorrow, and nothing going in, little bit, and then you're all the way down here. And then you're ill and sick, and you think, oh, this just popped up. And I'm like, it didn't. You lived a life that continually drained this, and you were gonna get signs that you're drained. Your life force is draining. It just keeps going down and down and down and down and down and down. And then before you know it, here's cancer, or here's diabetes, or here's something, right? So for my own journey, the shame that I lived with for years was draining me. That was another thing that drains. I don't know if I put that up there, but shame is a huge. I said your trauma. Basically, I said that in the beginning. It's a big thing, but shame really drains. But under shame, I lived a lot of suppressing and hiding of myself. I didn't really do what I wanted to do. I was chasing. I thought, I was supposed to make money and be a upstanding. Instead, I wanted to go and sing, and I really wanted to. I didn't, but I was here. I was working this 9-to-5 job, and that's not what I really wanted to do. And I wasn't enjoying it, and I didn't have a sense of community, and like my whole life was this drain on my system. And the body can't stay well. It cannot stay well. It just cannot. But it can heal from anything when you charge the life force energy back in. But so that's charging and draining of the life force energy. There's a lot more to it that I want to share with you all, but in the interest of time, we'll probably add that into our last session. But thank you all for joining. For now, I'm going to continue on with these guys in here, but I will see you all next time. Much love.